Hello everyone, Mark here, Mark's Max Muscle, and we have a bit of a controversial matchup today, to say the very least. Bob Cicherillo versus Phil Clahar. Wow, I am sure that it's not going to get a pile of views, but the ones that watch it will probably be interested in it, namely Phil Clahar and Bob Cicherillo, so hopefully these two superstars do tune in and watch this. And if they do, no disrespect meant to either of you guys. Big men. I would like to think that at the end of the day I could go shake your hands if I met you guys at one of those, things there that they do. Expos. But anyway, for this one, we have 2002 Bob Cicherillo, 2023 Phil Clahar, and I don't want to hear anything about, but you're using Bob when he's young and Phil's old here. Doesn't matter. These are their Olympia showings. They both qualified for the Olympia. This is it. You step on that Olympia stage, it is forever. Now, what's this all about? Why would I do this matchup? Well, I think we all know by now. Phil Clahar, he placed second at the Masters Olympia. And he complained about it on a couple of channels, namely EP09's, a channel that I actually visit. I go over there and do podcasts with Kenzen Jardine of EP09. And then he had Bob Cicherillo on his show as well. And Bob explained calmly and very professionally just why Phil was not robbed. And there was a complaint, obviously, about the point system. But I mean, if we're going to judge this one, I have Bob winning this one. The midsection's too much. Phil's got some arms and some wheels for sure. But Bob's midsection, pretty good, and his structure is unbelievable. So, yeah, Bob wins the front double because of the midsection. And you should write that down because I think the Masters Olympia had a lot to do with the midsections. Here's the front lat spread. We'll just kind of talk about this issue as we go through the poses. Now, one thing, I was watching EP09's interview that he did with Phil Clahar. Very good job, by the way, on that interview. And he asked Phil, did you complain to the judges? Did you ask the judges? And Phil said no. Well, if you're not going to talk to the judges about it, really, talking to other channels, not only EP09, but one other channel that he was on, not going to mention any names, for certain reasons, but he seemed to be quite a cheerleader for Phil, and sometimes that can get these bodybuilders in trouble. Phil, you were robbed, getting in his ear and complaining on these channels. But like I said, if you're going to complain to anybody, if you're going to ask anybody what happened about the point system, ask the judges. They were the only ones there. Phil himself, Dorian Haywood that won. These guys' eyeballs were not on the screen. You understand what I'm saying? So the bodybuilder himself did not get to see the comparison. Nor did Bob. Bob wasn't there. And the lighting was so atrocious at the Masters Olympia that you couldn't tell anything from pictures or the live stream. But having said that, the judges were there. I was not there. And Phil and Dorian were there, but they couldn't see the stage. That's the worst seat in the house in terms of actually judging. So when bodybuilders themselves try to judge these competitions, it's like, with all due respect, guys, like I said, you get the worst seat in the house. Who's winning the front lat spread? Well, again, Bob, his structure, these guys are similar structurally, muscle-wise, but again, the midsection of Bob, that is a pretty good midsection. But I will say, and I'm sure Team Clahar will be in the comment section below, who's more conditioned, Mark's Max Muscle? Maybe Phil. Who's got the better midsection? Team Clahar? Bob does. Now turn to the side. A good pose for both gentlemen. I would suggest Phil Clahar has an edge in condition, which you may have noticed in the front. I don't know. Hard to see, really, between these two guys. But from the side, yes, you can tell Phil is in a little bit better condition. And his Achilles heel, or what have you, the only real blemish on his physique, the midsection, looks very good here. Maybe even better than Bob's. Similar. But yes, you take that out of the equation, Phil is the better man. Nice big juicy arm there, and the big man's chest on Phil, little bit bigger than Bob's, I have to say. And Bob has some bountiful bosoms, for sure. So Phil gets a shot here. Is Phil winning from both side poses? Hey, wait a second. This is not from the 2002 Olympia. I think it is from 2002, maybe, for Bob Cicherillo. Maybe a little bit later on. But he could be more conditioned here, so it's not very fair to say. We're talking Olympia versus Olympia. I will say one thing, though. Bob's midsection looks very good, with all due respect to Philip. Like I said, I like Phil. I like Bob. Much to your guys' surprise, yes, I like Bob. He's not the evil Lord Bob. You see, I used to do professional wrestling, so I'm one of the few that get it. I get it. Go to the back. Wow. Phil Clahar's back lat spread is unbelievable. Now, the lower half, he's spreading his spreading eagle, whatever, he's doing the motorcycle. That's what they do. I was trying to think of that. Bob, nice and straight, and that's why I made Bob a little bit taller. I'm sure the size police will be all over this one. How can you make them different heights when they're the same height? They're probably about the same height, I would suggest. I'm not going to argue if one's half-inch taller or whatever, but when one guy bends at the knees, yeah, it makes him way shorter. But it doesn't matter, does it? Phil, he's winning on the back. Condition-wise, I think it's similar. It's close. I thought it was going to be a blowout for Phil Clahar, because I remember Bob said one time, and you said this, Bob. He said he was buttery soft. That's what Bob said about himself. So he can poke fun at himself. If you can't handle, I guess, criticism, it's probably the worst sport to be in. Here's the back double. A better pose for Bob, I think. Or maybe not as good of a pose for Phil Clahar. Or is it Clahar? I know Bob calls him Clahar, but I apologize, Phil, if it's Clahar. But either way, yes, it's pretty close here in the back double, I would suggest. Now, when all things are equal, the stance, the way they're holding their wheels, it does matter. And I have to say, I do prefer the old way when they didn't go motorcycle stance. It looks like they're sitting on a motorcycle. Bob has a pretty big badonkadonk. A badonkadonk. A great big bottom. But is it any less conditioned than Phil Clahar and the glutes, hamstrings, things of that nature? I would guess Phil might be in better condition, but it's not that much. It's not that much. So I guess you could say Phil wins both back shots. He wins from the back, I think. I think that rear lat spread was set in stone. He's winning that one. This one's close. So from the back, yes, he is winning. And I guess you could argue from the front, Bob Cicherillo's winning. And it could be a half and half from the side. So interestingly enough, you could argue that it is a tie. And with just 2 poses remaining, including this abs and thigh shot, I think this one will remain a debate. I think it's going to be obvious, the Bob Cicherillo fans, they're going to say Bob was better. And Phil Clahar, his fans are going to say he's better. And like I was mentioning earlier, if you can't take criticism, bodybuilding's the worst, absolute worst thing. Because it is literally in the hands of the judges. So you can't really argue if they say you're losing. Can you? No, you can't. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Phil Clahar comes from a boxing background. He boxed. Now, that's a sport where if you don't like how things are going, you can take things into your own hands. You see, Phil could take things into his own hands. If he wanted to win that bad, he'd win. But with bodybuilding, it's in the hands of the judges, so there's only so much you can do. And to take criticism oh so seriously, I have to say, from a fan's point of view, a bodybuilding fan, it's not a good look. It's a terrible look. There was no better look than when Nick Walker did not complain about the Pittsburgh. More people complained about Nick Walker being robbed at the Pittsburgh than they were about Phil Clahar being robbed at the Masters Olympia, I can tell you that. And nothing was said from Nick. That's a bodybuilder's attitude. That's what a bodybuilder needs. Like Ronnie Coleman said, don't complain. How long I placed dead last this year, that year, and didn't complain. Why would you? It's just not going to get you anywhere. But having said that, pretty close in the abs and thigh, too. Phil Clahar, nothing to write home about. And Bob Cicherillo, also nothing to, phone your friends about and, check out this abs and thigh. It's the best one of all time. And here's the most muscular. Yet again, somewhat of a debate. I'd lean towards Clahar. The midsection of Bob is a little better, which it's been throughout the entire matchup, except for the side chest and the back shots, which doesn't show the midsection. Condition-wise, Phil, a little bit better. Quads look a little bit more, crispy, like dry. A dry, crispy look. So Phil could very well be the winner of this one, based on that, the condition edge. And from behind as well, he might have been a little more conditioned. But as we've seen, it wasn't that much. And this one is so close. And we know what's going on here, people. The Phil fans are going to say he was winning because of the condition, because of the muscle separation, perhaps. And the Bob fans are all going to say Bob was winning. Look at that front double. Look at the midsections. Come on, people. Where are you from? So I'm not going to get involved either way, but I will tell you that nobody is actually dominating. So if a judge is going to give one person the victory over the other guy really has no right to complain. You see my point? Phil Clahar complaining about his placings. It's just not going to get him anywhere. In my opinion, if you don't like the placings, go train harder. Talk to the judges that day. Get it out of your system. And don't stew about it and go on to other channels. It's just probably not going to get you any more fans. Even though, yes, your subscriber counts might go up. You're getting your nose out there. But it's your long-term fans, your diehards, that you should respect more than these just run-of-the-mill fans jumping on your bandwagon. Hit thumbs up on the video. Bob Cicherillo, the voice of bodybuilding. And no, I did not sign the petition to get Bob Cicherillo fired. That is utterly ridiculous. Grow up, guys. Have a nice one.